Tucker Carlson is on his show the same night he's talking about how migrants are filling up this country and there's no room for them because America's an overcrowded place. Really fanning the racial flames himself right there. Here's Tucker Carlson saying this about the mass shooting that occurred in Atlanta, leaving, I believe it was 8 people dead, 6 of whom were Asian.
So the guy's accused of murdering 8 people, and all the questions were about race. Okay. But notice, it's the politicians who jump in immediately to divide the country along racial lines. Vivek Ramaswamy has thought a lot about this. He's the author of the book Woke Inc., and he joins us tonight. Vivek, thanks so much for coming on. So you've been hearing this. This is such a sad story, a horrible story.
Press pause for a second. The idea that you would need on a guy who authored a book, Woke Inc., which I'm assuming by the title of it is obviously a book about cultural issues, right? The same bullshit with Dr. Seuss and Mr. Potato Head. That's what he's bringing this guy on to talk about. Woke Inc., the whole wokeness thing has nothing to do with the idea of a mass shooter walking into 3 businesses in Atlanta and shooting Asian women mostly. I mean, the idea you'd have that guy on as the expert. Come on. Continue with the clip.
But it's part of a much bigger story we've been told for the past couple of weeks, that these very real attacks against Asian Americans are somehow a product of white supremacy. I don't think there's any evidence whatsoever to support that. In fact, I think it's kind of the opposite of the truth. Why do they keep telling us that?
Look, what happened today was really sad, and I think we have to recognize that a tragedy was a tragedy today. But that's a tragedy irrespective of the color of the skin of the perpetrator or the color of the skin of the victim. And you know what this reminds me of, actually, Tucker, is a few years ago, actually in 2016, there was the killing at Pulse nightclub, a different tragedy. It was an LGBTQ nightclub. Yeah. And initially, right after it happened, President Obama showed up on the scene and said this was an attack on the LGBT community. And in fact, then candidate President Trump actually said the same thing. Turns out in these situations, we have to wait for the facts to bear themselves out. That was an act of Islamic terrorism that was relatively random against the United States. He tried to attack a different club first and didn't even know that it was an LGBT club, any evidence suggests. So I think in cases like these, the facts actually matter. And I think it's shameful when identity politics obsessed politicians jump on this as a personal opportunity for themselves.
The facts do matter. They don't matter to you. Even if you take the cop's word at face value, we'll get to that clip in a second about that cop.
Yeah.
That this was, as the murderer suspect said, a result of his sex addiction. Perhaps he was going to massage parlors and receiving some sort of sex work, and this was his anger towards himself that was resulted in mass murder. Even if you take that at face value, it's already a racialized situation. It's already inherently racialized. The system of massage parlors and Asian sex workers. So it's embedded in the conversation no matter what. And they are divorcing the facts of the situation in order to, as Tucker always does, muddy waters and downplay white supremacy.
It's not just Tucker. It's the whole damn channel is rolling and running with this. Let's play this clip from Fox and Friends. Sorry for just springing that on you.
It's just terrible. And he did, thank you very much, Carly. He did tell authorities that the attacks were an attempt to remove the temptation of his sex addiction.
Yeah, his parents are the one that turned him in, or it could have been so much worse as he was heading into Florida, as Carly was mentioning. But the big thing is, if you listen to that story, when it first came out, and we covered it here in the morning, and we said, oh, they said this could be related to some type of Asian hate crime, and it might be. But so far, there's no indication of that. And evidently, when this killer was interviewed, it's all about his being a sexual addiction. It doesn't seem to have any link, according to the police, to any type of hate crime, even though they haven't made formal charges yet. I'm just astounded that people are jumping to that scenario from the White House on down when the investigation is not revealing that. Do we have to create it?
They are taking the words of the murderer over the facts of the situation. That's exactly what's happening there. Can you imagine if a Muslim guy shot up 8 people in a different part of or in a different situation? Would they be taking his explanation of a sex addiction as the reason for why he did those atrocities at face value? It would be immediately, as the Pulse nightclub shooting was mentioned there, as they immediately jumped to the conclusion that he was connected with ISIS, right? Which I don't believe that wasn't true. He was sympathetic to that situation. But yeah, I mean, it's just infuriating.
Well, I mean, I just want to point out there's a local. Go ahead, Brendan.
I was just gonna say, look at the distance he covered to go to these different massage parlors, basically.
Right. I wonder why he went to Young's Asian Massage.
So far away.
Why that one. I mean,
Yeah, over 30 miles away from where.
Yeah, and there's, I mean, the police are saying certain things that Fox News is going to keep to, but there's this from chosun.com, a reporter Wang Jiyun, and you know, this is translated. It'd be interesting to see this corroborated in a way that doesn't have to go through Google Translate. But Atlanta shooter tells me I'm going to kill all Asians. That's according to a surviving witness. So we're not hearing everything yet, and like often. Like, I mean, I've seen stuff about like cops say certain things to make sure the feds don't come in and make it a Fed jurisdiction thing, right? Like, I think it's bullshit, and I think anybody in the media downplaying the hate element of that is doing a solid probably for cops, maybe. But
and I think it's probably a little bit too late to try to avoid the feds coming in.
I would hope
after
so.
This, yeah.